want to start out this morning asking if you will, just join me in welcoming those who have joined us online this week. Thank you guys. I hope you'll have a great week, and we're always here for you. If there's anything we can do for you, please let us know that. We're excited to be here today. I hope you're excited to be here today. You can go ahead and turn your Bible to Ephesians chapter 3. That's going to be our text for today. We're going to kind of go through Ephesians. I've been studying that this week, and we're going to kind of go through and skip and look at really 3 through 5, some different verses there that I really think will help us in our walk. I went to high school with this girl named Brandy. She was a pretty girl. She was a smart girl. She was a cheerleader. But she was a little bit different. First of all, she was about 5'10", and that was always kind of awkward for her because all the other girls were a little bit shorter, and she always said, I'm just really tall, kind of like a basketball player, kind of stick out in that sense. So she always felt a little bit odd in that sense. She wore this ring on her finger, on the ring finger. And if you asked her why she wore it, she would tell you that she was saving herself for marriage and that she would give that ring to her future husband on her wedding day. And that was a vow she kept, and was very, very adamant about that and very upfront about that. She wouldn't pray. She would pray. She wouldn't cuss. She wouldn't party like the other people that went to school with. A lot of folks gave her a hard time because she wasn't disrespectful to teachers. She was always very kind. Wouldn't argue. If she got the grade that she didn't want, she wouldn't really say a whole lot about it. So she was good. But the only problem being different at 15 is that no one wants to be different at 15. So the fact of the matter is, as we got on into high school, probably our 9th, 10th grade year, some people really started giving her a hard time. Some people really started getting on her, kind of ridiculing her for the life that she was living. And eventually she ended up transferring schools. And that really made me mad, because she was a good friend of mine. And the reason that people got on her was because she was different. It's hard to be different. But if you look at the world that we live in today, you look at the Bible and see how it says that we are to live, it says we are to be different in the world that we live in today. Look at these texts. It says in Romans chapter 12, verse 2, don't copy the behavior and customs of this world. 1 John chapter 2, verse 15 says, do not love this world nor the things it offers you. When we follow these things in the world that we're living in today, that makes us different. So I want to ask you, as we think about where we are in life this morning, we think about our culture, we think about living in the South, what is normal here for us? Well, it's normal to live a pretty good life. It's normal to go to church. I mean, a lot of people in the South, that's just the thing you do. You get up, you go to church, and you live a pretty good life. So if that's normal, what would be different? I think the thing we need to think about as we live our lives every day is not to just go into life and be normal, but I think we need to go into life and say that I'm going to live the life that God has called me to, and that is the life of a missionary. That I go into my life every day seeing that God has put me on mission to live for Him in my community. Because that's what God is calling us to. God is calling us to be missionaries in our homes, in our communities, in our neighborhoods, in our circles of influence. When we go to work, we'll be a missionary. When we go to school, we're going to be a missionary. I have a mission of Jesus Christ that I am taking into my neighborhood, into my home, into my school and work every day. I'm doing what He has called me to do with the life that He's called me to live by going out and living that every day. Let me ask you this. How are you living each day? We say, well, I'm living a good life. I'm not getting into trouble. I love my wife. And that's great. But let me ask you this. Is it intentional for the kingdom? Do you live a life where you're being a pretty good person and you're loving your wife and you're not getting into trouble because you're trying to do the best that you can to work those things into the mission for life? So that you can say to people, I live that way because of Jesus Christ. See, people need a good example to look to. It's important for us all to be good examples in the life that we live. They need to see people who are living a good life. They need to see people who are good to their spouse. They need to see people who are staying out of trouble. But they need to see that you are doing that because it's something that you do because you live for something more. I mean, the fact of the matter is, there are a whole lot of people who live good lives. But why are they living the good life? Well, that's just what I do. We've always been good people. We've always been moral people. Is that where you are today? Are you saying, I'm living a good life because I'm called to a higher standard? I'm called to a mission in life, and I live the way that I live because of who lives in me. See, we can just live the normal life, the everyday accepted kind of life, or we can be different. And if we're going to be different, then we're going to be on mission every day. I mean, think about this. You go to work 30 years, and you're in and out of that same place a lot of times for us every day, working with the same people for 30 years. How much of an influence are you having on them for Jesus Christ? Do you look at this and say, man, I've got a 30-year mission field here. I'm going to be not going to Africa or Russia, but I'm going to be going to Lindale. I'm going to be going to Coosa. I'm going to be going to wherever it is that I'm working every day. And I have these people that God has surrounded me with, and I'm going to be on mission to help them to walk closer to Jesus. Some of us may travel. Some of us may have people that are different. We may have clients that come in and out. We may not interact with people every day who are the same people. You may be a coach. You may be a teacher. Every year you got a new student body who comes into your group or into your room, and you're able to influence them in a different way. When they walk out from your meeting, from your classroom, are they going to be better people because you were on mission to help them live like Jesus in a greater way? Whatever you do, influence someone for Jesus. See, the whole idea of go, you go back to the Matthew chapter 28, the Great Commission, and it talks about going into the world. And that's been the idea since the very beginning. But what have we done as Christ followers in the last 75 years or so? We've built our cathedrals and said what? Instead of going, hey, y'all come to us. Come on in here. And we've invited, and our doors are open, sure, but the only problem is it's kind of hard for people to come when we're not going to them. And what I think we need to do is we need to get back on mission of going into the lives of people that we're around every day and saying this: I want to come into your life. I want to share my brokenness so that I can talk to you about your brokenness. We can understand we have common ground. I want to share with you what God is doing for me about my brokenness, and I want to invite you to come and be a part of what we're doing so He can heal your brokenness as well. Because see, the thing about it is when we sit in our cathedrals and we seem to have it all together, those people who are outside, who are broken, it's not very attractive to them. But when I share my brokenness with you and you're broken in a similar way or a very different way, then you understand that I'm right there where you are. We're on common ground. And you see that I'm submitting my life to God, and He's healed me in some ways, and He's brought me to a certain place in life, then that's going to encourage you to do the same thing. I appreciate Lynn. I appreciate him opening up and sharing what he shared during the communion this morning about having a hard time sharing who he is and opening up to people sometimes. And I think that's hard for a lot of us. Because we've been taught to put on the face, right? Appear as someone who's got it all together because that's what the world teaches us. But God is saying to us, look at my word. Look at the people that I used. David, Abraham, Peter, all these different folks who were broken and whose brokenness was very obvious to us. See how I used them in a great way despite the things that they were struggling with in their life, and see how I can use you in the same way if you will allow yourself, your true self, to be seen by those that you live with every day. God has saved us. He set us on a mission to be a light and to be life in this world. And folks, as we get on that mission and we allow others to see who we truly are and we lay it out there for them, Other people will be one. No doubt in my mind about that. This week, Kristen and I and our family watched the movie Woodlawn. I don't know if you've ever seen that or not, but if you haven't, I encourage you to watch that. It's an amazing movie. And there's one thing that I kind of got from the movie that just kept hitting me over and over and over again. And that is, people are won to Jesus not by what they hear, but by what they see. When they see Him working in you in a way that's almost, they use this term, miraculous. I mean, it had to be something that was just of God, because these teams, it was a black and white thing. It was integration time. And this team came together and they were integrated, and everybody was fighting all over the city except Woodlawn. And what did Woodlawn have that no one else had? They had God. They had this chaplain that came in and he shared Jesus with them. There's 44 people in the audience that night, and 41 of them became believers. One of them who didn't become a believer was the coach, because he's like, man, you just go out and you do your thing every day. You play football hard. That's it. Well, as the season progressed, he keeps seeing something that's there, and he can't explain it. And finally, he says, you know what? I got to have some of this. And we wonder why we can't convert people a lot of times. And I think we put God in this box, and we say, God, this is what you can do and what you can't do. And we don't celebrate the victories, and we don't proclaim His name, and we don't praise Him enough. We're doing it on our own. Hey, I made myself stronger. I've got the willpower to do this. I'm the one who's responsible for being where I am today. And if that's where you are in your walk with God, then how are you different from anyone else? Because people in the world can buy a fitness tape and lose 50 pounds. People in the world have discipline, self-discipline, willpower. There's things that they can do on their own. Either you're doing it on your own or you're doing it through Jesus. And if we're doing it through Jesus, we need to let that be known. We need to praise His name. We need to let other people know that He's getting the credit for the changes that have taken place in my life. So what I want you to understand is, if you want to win someone for Jesus, and that's been your goal, and you haven't had any luck yet, I want to ask you, are you praising Him? Are you giving Him credit? Are you allowing Him to be seen in the way you live your life every day? And if not, start doing that. Start allowing others to see Him in your actions. Before you make a decision, you put it to God in prayer. When you have an opportunity to help someone, you do that. When you have an opportunity to make the choice to love or to seek revenge, you love someone. And as you do that over 2 or 3 months and people see this change in you, they'll be drawn to it, because they'll say, hey, I know you've been going to church for a long time, but something's different in you. And I want to have what you have. We're going to go to the book of Ephesians today for our lesson from God's Word. And the background of the book of Ephesians is it was written by Paul to the church at Ephesus as a letter of encouragement. And he's saying, hey, what I want you to do is I want you guys who are assembled there and doing your thing day in and day out, I want you to go out and I want you to be the living body of Jesus in your city. And as we read it today, that's the same message we can get from it. I want you guys to go out as the church at Rome, into our surrounding areas, and I want you guys to be living vessels for Jesus Christ. So how does that happen? How do I not just go to church, but I go out every day and I'm the living body of Jesus? How can I be different? Ephesians chapter 3, we'll start there. Paul says, I pray that from His glorious unlimited resources He will empower you with inner strength through His Spirit. Then Christ will make His home in your hearts as you trust in Him. Your roots will grow down into God's love and keep you strong. And may you have the power to understand, as all God's people should, how wide, how long, how high, and how deep His love is. Paul's prayer was that God would grant the Ephesian brethren the opportunity to experience the things that he mentioned in this passage. And I think that's a very good starting point for us today. As we're in this 21 days of prayer and fasting, I want to encourage you to add some things to your prayer list, to your prayer request list. And I want to give you 3 of those this morning. First is this: God, please help me understand how much you love me, and how much you love every person you've ever created. That goes back to verse 18 that we referenced just a moment ago. And see, I think as we fully understand this, or I don't think we'll ever fully understand it until we're before God, but as we understand it to the point that we can, I think as we understand His love in a greater way, His love for us, His love for mankind, that's going to do something within us. It's going to help us to fulfill the mission that He's called us to fulfill in this life. Because we have a greater understanding of His love, and we have a greater understanding of how much He loves those who are around us. Second thing I want to encourage you to write down as a prayer request. God, please empower me through the Spirit to do the things that You've called me to do. And that goes back to verse 16 that we looked at just a moment ago. And what are the things that You call me to do? Well, if you go back and look in the book of Ephesians, in chapter 3, verse 10, it says, His intent was that now through the church, the manifold wisdom of God should be made known. How should it be known? Through the church. Through you and I going out every day and letting other people know that there's a better way. That there's somewhere that you can go where people come together and they love each other and they don't have it all together, but they don't judge each other. They accept each other. They love each other. They're here for each other. That is to be what we are about as we go out and about every day. I mean, think about the things that we spend our day talking about, conversing about to others. How are we influencing everyone that we come into contact with? You know, what difference does it make how cold it really is? What difference does it make if the Braves are terrible? You know? I mean, I think about different things like that, the stuff that we talk about. And there's nothing wrong with talking about those things. But that's all we talk about sometimes. How about using those things as kind of the opener to get to what we're really wanting to talk about? Man, God's doing some great things in our church. Man, I just want to tell you, God has been really good to me. He's blessed me in a great way over the last few months. Well, hey, man, you know, since we're talking, I've been meaning to ask you, our life group meets at my house on Tuesday nights at 7. You want to come be a part of that? It's just a little Bible study. Hey, if you don't like it, you don't have to come back. I won't mention it to you again. I'm not going to beat you over the head with it. But we'd love to have you on Tuesday night, 7 o'clock. I read something about this week in our discipleship group, and we've been looking at this book called I Will by Tom Rainer, and it was talking about this guy who was an introvert, and he said, I was just never good at talking to other people about Jesus. He said, I got really frustrated, I got envious at times because I had friends who would go out and talk to other people about Jesus. We'd be in a restaurant, my buddy just started talking to the waitress. He said, so I tried to do that and I failed miserably. And it made me really frustrated because I looked at the Word and I knew that I have to go out and talk to people about Jesus. Let me tell you what this guy did. He was out in his yard one day and his neighbor came over, and they were both cutting their yard and they cut their lawnmowers off and started talking to each other. And he said, hey man, I got a men's Bible study group and we meet 7 o'clock on Sunday nights. You want to come over? He said, no, no pressure. He said, we're still going to be friends if you don't, and if you come, you don't like it, I'm not going to badger you about it. He said, the guy had told him before, I'm an atheist, I just don't believe in God. He said, so I didn't really think he would show up. He said, so time rolls around for the Bible study, and guess what? Boom, guy shows up. He said, what really surprised me is I'm sitting in church on Sunday morning, and I look up, my buddy comes in and sits down beside me. And he comes back the next week, and after about 4 or 5 weeks, he says, hey man, I'm ready to do this thing. I know I told you before I'm not a believer, but I've been in this hard, been looking at stuff, and I'm ready to become a believer in Jesus Christ. So this guy did it. Next week, his wife came with him. The next week, his 2 children came with him. And then after about a month, his wife and his 2 children were baptized and became believers in Jesus Christ. And it all went back to 4 people becoming members of the body because one person was out in his yard and said, hey buddy, you want to come to group with me? So I'm asking you, what are you doing day in and day out? How are you allowing the mission to be seen? God, please empower me through the Spirit to do the things that you call me to do. Very simple prayer. The third one, God, please recreate my heart, mold it, make it Christ-like. And he's going to do that when? Well, let's go back to verse 17. Then Christ will make his home in your hearts as you trust in him. When we trust in him, we trust him with our heart. Your version of the Bible may say, allow Christ to dwell in your heart. Let me let you know what this verse means, or this word dwell means. It means to live in it as a home. I thought that was awesome. Is this the home of Christ right here? And I'm trying to make it the home for him. But sometimes it's not. But you think about it, if I can let Christ live right here, this can be the vessel where people look at me and say, hey, that guy right there really believes in Jesus. That guy right there is a Jesus follower. When I see him, man, he's a little bit over the top sometimes. And he does some stuff that I don't necessarily agree with, some weird stuff. They go to church, they have these life groups, have people in their home. I don't really want to do all that. But man, I know I'm going to get a blessing from him because I know he's going to say something good. I know he's going to pray with me. I know if I tell him my mom's sick and he prays, he's going to come back the next week and ask me how mom's doing. Is Jesus living in your heart? Is this the home of Jesus? Or is it filled with all the other things in the world? The things that everybody else fills the heart with. Greed, pursuit of money, everything else that looks really good. But they're not going to matter 50, 60, 70 years from now. What's in your heart? See, as this becomes more and more of what God wants it to be, and as Jesus gets in there in greater ways, we're going to see the world the way that Jesus saw it. We're going to see the others in the way that Jesus saw them. When he truly is in our heart, we can't help but to be different. But Joey, my thoughts, my attitudes about others just aren't what they should be. You ever said that? I mean, what group do you struggle with, or what person or people? I struggle with people who really think that they're better than me. You know? I mean, you see those people, and we all have people in our lives that, you know, that person just thinks they're better. Or they think they're smarter than you, or you can't. I struggle with that sometimes. I struggle with people who are in a situation, and they use that situation as their excuse. That they will never get better in life because, well, you know, my mom and dad did this, or, you know, I was poor growing up, or, you know, I had this situation, and it's been that reason for 5 years or 20 years, and they always go back. I struggle with people who make an excuse for why they won't choose to be better in life. I struggle with those people in a big time way. How about you? Who is it for you? What group of people do you really struggle with? The thoughts, the actions, the attitudes. And see, I struggle with, well, let's look at what the Scripture says. Look at Ephesians chapter 4, 23. It says, instead, let the Spirit renew your thoughts and attitudes. Put on your new nature, created to be like God. And what does that mean we are? Truly righteous and holy. Have you ever broken it down like this? Have you ever said, God, here are my thoughts. Here are my attitudes, the things that I'm really struggling with, and I'm putting it before you. And I'm asking you to help me to have a better attitude towards people who use their circumstances in life as an excuse not to get any better. Have you ever prayed that? I mean, we got to put those things before God. We got to come clean with Him as we're down on our knees, as we're praying over the next 7 days that are left in this fast and prayer time. Get honest with Him. Confess those things. I mean, if we're going to have ourselves cleansed, if we're going to be the people that God wants us to be, if we're going to really experience renewal, I think confession is a part of that. We got to tell Him, this is where I am. I'm not carrying this burden anymore. I'm going to lay it out there, and I'm going to let you do what you do with it. I thought this was interesting. The term Spirit here, most people think it's not necessarily referring to the Holy Spirit. It's referring to your intellectual capacity. And see, within your intellectual capacity, you can make the choice to take something that you struggle with and put it before God. You can do that, or you can choose to continue to do what you're doing, which is struggling, which is what I'm doing, which is struggling. Why? Because I'm holding that to myself. But if I'll use the intellectual capacity God has given me and say, okay, I've got the Spirit living within me, God wants to help me, He tells me that, Jesus will bear my burdens. If I will put that before Him, by making a choice, He will help me. See, it's a two-way street. God will do His part, but I need to submit. So what thoughts do you have toward others? Thoughts that need a little work. What attitudes do you have that need to be removed? If you want to be different, you're going to have to change clothes. And I see that as a beautiful illustration in the Bible. You see this passage here in verse 24. It says, put on your new nature, created to be like God, truly righteous and holy. Put it on. See, that's how I walked for a long time. That's how I was identified. Those clothes are there. You know, we got these different eras, right? We got the different eras of style. I tell Kristen all the time, when I was at Jacksonville State, the era then kind of, you could wear shorts and a t-shirt, and you could wear these little sandal-looking things that didn't have the thing in the middle. It was just kind of, you know, you could kind of just put your foot in there. And you wore socks with them. And I'm big time on that. I'm waiting for that one to come back around because I love that era, you know? And there have been a couple of times when, like, I've had the socks on and we've been going, she's like, what are we doing? I was like, we're going, no, not those socks on anymore. But, you know, the duck boots are back in. I was in high school the last time duck boots were back in. So maybe I'm thinking about 5 years, those little sandals will come back in. I wear the socks again. So I'm excited about that. But if you'd seen me in Jacksonville State, that's the way you would have identified me. Hey, he's the guy that wears the socks. He's one of those guys. And you probably wouldn't have made a big deal out of it because everybody was doing it then. But you look at me now, I can't wear the socks because Kristen won't let me, you know? So one reason I'm saying that is because your look is putting on two different things. The things I was identified with yesterday, that was my clothing. That's what you identified me with. What are you identifying me with today? It should be a new nature. There should be something that you see about me that is evident in the way that I carry myself. As you put on this new nature, you're going to be renewed more and more every day. You're going to be filled in greater ways with holiness and righteousness, to be more like God and less like the world. To become more concerned about the things that God's concerned with, about justice and making things right here on this planet, and less concerned about the things that we want to pursue. To be more kingdom focused and less worldly focused. Righteousness. You'll be more righteous. You'll be more holy. What is righteousness? You ever thought about that? This is the definition I found. We do what is right in our relationships with others. I need that more. I need to do what is right in my relationships with others, especially those that I struggle to love. So goes the Father, so goes the Son. We've heard that before, right? Look at Ephesians chapter 5, verse 1. It says, imitate God, therefore, in everything you do, because you are His dear children. Imitate God. However the Father acts, that's how I'm going to act. We say it a lot of times in a bad way because we say, well, you know, His Father did that. That's what He does. He's following right along with it. And we see evidence of that in the Word. You see some people there who carried on the habits of their fathers, their forefathers, and that's a bad thing a lot of times. But this is a good thing. God is calling us to go into the world and imitate Him. To be who He is in this world. As children of God, we should do what God does. We should offer a hand and a heart to the sick, to the hurting, to the hungry, to the rejected. We should give ourselves up in the same way that Christ did. To take on the form of a slave. That's what the Word says. And we struggle with that a lot of times, right? Because a slave is what? You own me. You tell me what to do. I have no rights. I have surrendered them. And to say, I don't get to do what I want to do in this life because I have a Lord who is Jesus and I am his slave, that's not very appealing to us, is it? But that's what he's called us to do. To take on the form of a servant, of a slave, to say, I am going to do whatever my master calls me to do. Whatever he thinks is whatever I think. Whatever is important to him, that's what's going to be important to me. Is that where we are in our walk? We are to imitate the Father and the Son by the way that we love others. And this is simply a choice. A choice that we make day in and day out. A choice to love. To be different. Brandy was different. Today she's a nurse. She has 4 children. She's married to a good guy. They own a farm. She's been faithful to one man. She still watches the way she talks. She doesn't go out and live like the world. She prays. She ministers to others. She loves Jesus. She's still different. I hope I am too. If you have any need whatsoever, I'd love to help you this morning as we stand.